कालावसानि कृतं निद्राहार विहारकादिविदितं चत्तन्तं दीनं च यं गोपी भावरसामृता दिलहरी कल्लोलमग्नो नमो वन्दे रूप सनातन रघुयुगं श्रीजीव गोपालकं कृष्ण कीर्तन गानन तन पदं
Hare Krishna. All glories to Śrīla Prabhupāda, all glories to the Sankirtan movement of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and all glories to the assembled devotees of the Prabhupada Disciples Association Global. And we're broadcasting this morning from Eastern Canada, most specifically Hamilton, Ontario. And our chief media team coordinator is Venkat Prabhu. He's in South India, in Bangalore. And our main speaker today is His Grace Yaśodā-nandana Prabhu. And he is in California. And we welcome all the devotees from around the world that are participating in our Zoom meeting live, which is also being presented on Facebook on the Prabhupada Disciples Association group page. And we're happy to announce that we're moving to 8,300 members. So every week we're increasing the number of people interested in the spirit of this group and its focus on our spiritual master, the pure devotee of Krishna, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupāda. He reasons ill that thinks that Vaishnavas die, they live on in sound. And they spread the glories of the holy name all around for the benefit of the fallen conditioned souls in this Kali Yuga time, where everyone is filled with all kinds of trials and tribulations, especially the karmis that live in this world that are only interested in taking care of the material body, which is a bad place. Prabhupada used this example, and I know all of you know that the human body, Vijay Pandit, is a bad bargain for the spirit soul. A bad bargain. What does it mean? That you get something that you consider very valuable and precious, but it deteriorates. It becomes broken and invalid. I just saw a post from Gargamuni Prabhu in Vrindavan. He does a wonderful wonderful service in distributing only Prabhupada information. It's amazing. And if you get a chance, everyone, try to hook up with his website and his work that he's doing. And he's presenting all kinds of nectar, Prabhupada nectar, which is the focus of the Prabhupada Disciples Association. And this is where we have a common, how can I say, a common ground by which we operate. We are not, some people name us by different derogatory, in a sense, derogatory terms. They're not really derogatory, but they're implied that way. We are Prabhupada disciples, all of us. And our main focus is to understand his instructions and follow them meticulously. So we're going to go ahead. I think I sent the photographs. I don't know if you can still get them Did you see them, Vinkat Prabhu? I sent them on the Prabhupada Disciples Association. I got them. I don't know if you can use them, but...
yeah, we can use them.
Oh, okay, excellent. What a wonderful team we have. It's so fantastic. You know, everything requires teamwork. So here, we're on February 21st, January 1966. Now remember, again, Prabhupada arrived September 19th, 1965. So here we're in a little past 4 months, and here he's moving along. Now he's meticulously tracking his Lakshmi very, very carefully. So we can see here that he had postage 25 cents, and he spent 90 cents on sugar, etc. That means he bought a few other items besides the sugar, but the total bill from the grocery store was 90 cents. He received a letter from C.C. Doctor of Bombay. He has gone back from his promise. This is not good, better late than never. So here, Prabhupada had been soliciting help to build a temple in New York City, and we're getting indication from this note that the person canceled. So this is common in life. People say one thing and they do another. But anyway, the most important thing is do not become discouraged, push on. Mr. Bogart asked me to see him on Monday morning in his office at 866 United Nations Plaza. Larry Bogart is mentioned in more depth in the Prabhupada Leelamrita, Volume 2, Planting the Seed. Okay, Saturday, January 22nd, 1966. So here we see he's in New York, and he spent 15 cents, Vijaya Pandit. He's marking down 15 cents for salt. And he bought some bananas for 22 cents. So that's a total of 37 cents. He's keeping track of every penny. Letter sent to Surya Kumar Joshi of AICC office for help in getting sanction. So down here, it's All India Congress Committee, the governing council of India's ruling Congress political party. So he's Prabhupada shooting for the rhinoceros, trying to get the biggest people in India and, of course, throughout the world to take up Krishna consciousness. So also letter sent to Bene Bhushan Dutta, if he can help in this matter. The cleaner sent by Nina came to doctor's apartment and cleaned it. I gave some cold drink and he was glad. So he's staying at an office, and he had a cleaner was sent by the doctor to help him. And we'll go over to the next page. I think you've got it. Yeah, that's quite good, eh? Hold on. I just seem to. There we go. Okay, so it's January 23rd, 1966. So put yourself back in time with our Guru, Śrīla Prabhupāda, and see his memoirs reveal his mind and his purpose. New York, today, due to snowfall the whole day, I did not go outside to Dr. Mishra's apartment, nor outside the studio. I managed things here in the studio. No expenditures today. Monday, January 24th, 1966. to see Mr. Larry Bogart morning 9 a.m., saw Mr. Larry Bogart in his office. He advised me to write Mr. Felix Morrow for an appointment to see him. So I'm writing him and sending him some literature of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. And then Prabhupada meticulously writes down bus fare, 30 cents. So, very interesting look at Śrīla Prabhupāda's life. The more we learn about him and his great work, the more we'll become convinced of his position as the bona fide spiritual master, and we will become committed to his service for this one life. Venkat Prabhu, please play the Jaya Radha Madhava bhajan for the start of the class, to be given today by His Grace Yaśodā-nandana Prabhu. All glories to Śrīla Prabhupāda.
Sai. Jaya Radha Madhava Punya Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava सदस्यमान भक्ति सिद्धांत सरस्वती गोस्वामी प्रभुपाद की जय, अनंत कोटि वैष्णववृंद की जय, रामाचार्य श्री हरिदास ठाकुर की जय, प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवास आदि गौर भक्तवृंद की जय, श्री श्री राधा कृष्ण गौ गोपीनाथ श्याम कुंड राधा कुंड गिरिवर्धन की जय, वृंदावन धाम की जय, नवद्वीप धाम की जय, स्वामी तो भक्तवृंद की जय, गंगा माई की जय, जमुना माई की जय, तुलसी देवी की जय, भक्ति देवी की जय, स्वामी तो भक्तवृंद की जय. All glories to the assembled Lord. All glories to the assembled Lord. Thank you very much.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskrityam. Narayanam Namaskrityam. Naram Cheva Narottamam. Naram Cheva Narottamam. Devim Saraswatim Vyasam. Devim Saraswatim Vyasam. Tato Jayam Mudirayat. Tato Jayam Mudirayat. One should utter the means of conquest, Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, after offering respectful obeisances, 1. To the personality of Godhead Narayana, 2. To the Narayana Rishi, who is the supermost human being, 3. To the Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, then 4. To Śrīla Vyasadeva, the author. From Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 2, Text number 17. Śrīmvatam svakata Krishnaham, punya shravana kirtanaham, ridyantastoya badrani, vidunoti suritsatam. Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead, who is also the Paramatma in everyone's heart and the benefactor of the truthful devotee, does cleanse the desire for material enjoyment in the heart of the devotee, who has developed the urge for hearing his, Krishna's messages, which are themselves virtuous when properly heard and chanted. Text number 18. Nashtaprayeshu vabhadreshu nityam bhagavata sevayam bhagavati uttama shloke bhaktir bhavati naistiki. By regular attendance in the Bhagavat class or rendering service unto the pure devotees, all that is inauspicious in the heart of a candidate becomes destroyed almost to nil, and thus loving service unto the personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental songs, comes into being an irrevocable fact. So welcome everyone to this class, to this reading and discussion on Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. We are reading currently from the original 1962 New Delhi edition. All English synonyms, translations, and purports by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupāda, Founder-Ācārya of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, also known as the Krishna Consciousness Movement. Today we'll be reading from Canto 1, Chapter 2, Text 19 and 20. Tadarajastamo bhava kamalo bhadayaschaye chetayetera viddam stittam sattve prasidati. Tada, at that time, Rajas, the mode of passion, Tamo, the mode of ignorance. Kama, lust and desire. Lobha, anchoring. Adayas, others. Cha, and. Ye, whatever they are. Cheta, the mind. Eter, by these. Anavidam, without being affected. Stitam, being fixed up. Sattve, in the mode of goodness. Prasidati, thus becomes fully satisfied. Translation. As soon as irrevocable loving service is fixed up in one's heart at that time, the effects of the nature's mode of passion and ignorance, such as lust, desire and hankerings, etc., do disappear from one's heart, and he becomes fixed up in a mode of goodness, which makes him completely happy. Purport by Śrīla Prabhupāda. A living being in his normal constitutional position, he is fully satisfied in spiritual bliss. This state of existence is called Brahma-bhuta or Atmananda state, or the state of self-satisfaction. This self-satisfaction is not like the satisfaction of the inactive fool. The inactive fool is in a state of foolish ignorance, while the self-satisfied Atmanandi is transcendent to the material state of existence. This stage of perfection is attained as soon as one is fixed up in the irrevocable devotional service. Devotional service is not an activity, but it is the activity of the soul unalloyed. The soul's activity becomes adulterated in contact with matter, and as such, the diseased activities are expressed in the form of lust, desire, hankerings, inactivity, foolishness, and sleep. The effect of devotional service becomes manifest by complete elimination of these effects of passion and ignorance. The devotee is fixed at once in the mode of goodness, and he makes further progress to rise up to the position of Vasudeva, or the state of unmixed sattva, or Shuddha sattva state. In the Shuddha sattva state only, one can see eye to eye Krishna always, on account of pure affection for the Lord. A devotee is always in the mode of unalloyed goodness, and as such nobody has any cause of harm from the devotees of the Lord. Whereas the non-devotee class, however educated they may be, is always harmful to one another. A devotee is neither a fool nor passionate. The opposite number, namely the harmful, fool, and passionate, cannot be a devotee of the Lord, however one may advertise as a devotee by the outward dress. A devotee is always qualified with all the good qualities of God. Quantitatively, such qualifications may be different between the Lord and his devotees, but qualitatively, both of them are one and the same. Text number 20. Evam prasanna manaso bhagavad bhakti yogataha bhagavat tattva vijnanam mukta sangasya jayate. Evam, thus, prasanna, enliven, manasa, of the mind, bhagavad bhakti, devotional service of the Lord, yogataha, by contact of, bhagavat, in the matter of the personality of Godhead, tattva, knowledge, vijnanam, scientific, mukta, liberated, sangasya, of the association, jayate, becomes effective. Translation by Śrīla Prabhupāda. Thus, when one is positively fixed up in the mode of unalloyed goodness, the enlivened-minded man, affected by contact of devotional service of the Lord, can positively note scientific knowledge of the personality of Godhead in the stage of liberation from all material association. Purport by His Divine Grace Śrīla Prabhupāda. In the Bhagavad Gita it is said that out of many thousands of ordinary men, one fortunate man endeavors for perfection of life. Mostly they are conducted by modes of passion and ignorance, and thus they are engaged always in the matter of lust, desire, hankerings, ignorance, and sleep. Out of such men like animals, there is actually a man who knows the responsibility of human life, and thus tries to make a perfection of life by following the prescribed duties. And out of such many thousands of persons who have thus attained success in the matter of human life, one may know scientifically about the personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. Bhagavad Gita 7.6, Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam 2, and Bhagavad Gita 18.55. In the same Bhagavad Gita, it is also said that scientific knowledge of Sri Krishna is understood only by the process of devotional service, Bhakti Yoga. Bhagavad Gita 18.55. The very same thing is confirmed herein in the above words. No ordinary man, or even one who has attained success in the matter of human life, can know scientifically or perfectly the personality of Godhead. Perfection of human life is attained when one can understand that he is not the product of matter, but is in fact spirit. And as soon as one understands that he has nothing to do with matter, he at once ceases his material hankerings and become enlivened-minded as a spiritual being. The attainment of success is possible when one is above the modes of passion or ignorance, or in other words, when one is actually a Brahmin by qualification. Brahmin is the symbol of sattva guna, or the modes of goodness. And others who are not in the mode of goodness are either kshatriya, vaishya, or shudra, or less than the shudras. The Brahminical stage is the highest stage of human life on account of the good qualities. So nobody can be a devotee unless one is at least in the qualification of the Brahmin. Or the devotee is already a Brahmin by action. But that is not the end of it. As referred to above, such Brahmin has to become a Vaishnava, in fact, to be actually in the transcendental stage. A pure Vaishnava is liberated soul and is transcendental to the position of a Brahmin even. In the material stage, even the Brahmin is also conditioned soul. Because in the Brahminical stage, the conception of Brahman, or the transcendence, is realized. But in that stage, scientific knowledge of the personality of Godhead must be lacking. One has to surpass the Brahminical stage and reach the Vasudeva stage to understand the personality of Godhead Krishna. The science of the personality of Godhead is the subject matter for study of the postgraduate students in the spiritual line. Foolish men, or the men with poor fund of knowledge only, do not understand the personality of Godhead, and they interpret Krishna according to their respective whims. The fact is, however, that one cannot understand the science of the personality of Godhead unless one is freed from the contamination of the material modes, even up to the stage of the Brahman. When a qualified Brahman becomes a Vaishnava, in fact, in the enlivened stage of liberation, he can know what is actually the personality of Godhead. Om Ajnana-timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah Namaum Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Bhakti Siddhanta Shishyaya Bhaktivedanta Namine Prasannaya Prashantaya Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Bhagavad Bandhanam Khadyam Guru Bandhana Purvakam Kshiram Sarkara Yuktam Kadatihi Visheshataham Adadana Strinam Danter Idam Yache Puna Puna Srimad-Rupa Padam Bhoja Dhulishyam Janma Janmani Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrindam Shri Rup Shri Sanatana Bhatta Raghunatha Shri Jiva Gopala Bhatta Dasa Raghunatha Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So this section of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam is very important. For those of you who have attended the Bhagavad Gita class on Saturday morning, some time back, we have discussed in chapter 7 of Bhagavad Gita, text number 1 in the purport, how Śrīla Prabhupāda is quoting 5 verses from this section of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, all the way from that verse Srinvatam Svakata Krishna to verse Vidyate Hridaye Grantis. This is from Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 2, text 17 through 1021. We're currently in this section. Now, why is it so important? Because this is systematic explanation of the bhakti process. All of you are familiar. Many times we've discussed the verse by Rupa Goswami where he explains the step-by-step process of devotional service in that famous verse of the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Ado Shraddha Tata Sadhu Sango, all the way from faith to association of devotees, accepting a spiritual master, taking initiation from the bona fide authorized spiritual master, the cleansing of the unwanted things, anartha nivritti syat, then gradually developing a taste for hearing about Krishna, then developing some affection from Krishna and progressing to the higher stage of bhava and prema. Now, the actual systematic process is described in this progressive explanation of the step-by-step process of devotional service. We see on page 363 in the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 7, text 1, Śrīla Prabhupāda explains, to hear about Krishna from Vedic literatures or to hear from him directly through the Bhagavad Gita is itself righteous activity. And for one who hears about Krishna, Lord Krishna, who is dwelling in everyone's heart, acts as a best-wishing friend and purifies the devotee who constantly engages in hearing of him. In this way, a devotee naturally develops his dormant transcendental knowledge. As he hears more about Krishna from the Bhagavatam and from the devotees, he becomes fixed in the devotional service of the Lord. By development of devotional service, one becomes freed from the modes of passion and ignorance, and thus material lust and avarice are diminished. When these impurities are wiped away, the candidate remains steady in his position of pure goodness, becomes enlivened by devotional service, and understands the science of God perfectly. Thus, Bhakti Yoga severs the hard knot of material affection and enables one to come at once to the stage of asamshayam samagram, understanding of the supreme absolute truth, personality of Godhead. Therefore, only by hearing from Krishna or from his devotee in Krishna consciousness can one understand the science of Krishna. The foregoing was Prabhupada's translation of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 2, Text 1721. Now, this is very important because Śrīla Prabhupada, many times in his books and in his lectures and conversations, explains the process of bhakti. Now, some arrogant persons or persons with a poor fund of knowledge sometimes will say that Prabhupada did not systematically explain the process of bhakti. But this is simply nonsense. We can see, for example, in this text of Bhagavad Gita, chapter 7, text 1, Prabhupada is systematically explaining what is the process of bhakti. In other texts of the Bhagavad Gita, Prabhupada quotes from Rupa Goswami, namely that verse, Ado Shraddha Tata Sadhu Sango. He is explaining again the process of bhakti. So anyone who thinks or articulates that Prabhupada did not systematically present the process of devotional service of bhakti is simply ignorant and arrogant or arrogant. Why do we say this? Because anybody who takes the time to read Śrīla Prabhupada books carefully and familiarize himself with Śrīla Prabhupada's explanations can understand very easily that Prabhupada has given everything about bhakti. There was a popular philosophy that was propagated by various self-appointed acharyas from some neo-mats that Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupāda just gave the basic fundamentals. He just explained the beginning. And this individual was claiming that he was going to explain the real advanced stage of bhakti. This is madness. This is complete madness and foolishness. Prabhupada is giving everything. The sadhana bhakti, the raganuga bhakti, the bhava bhakti, the prema bhakti, everything is explained in Prabhupada's teachings and Prabhupada's books. Whether or not they've actually read and studied Prabhupada's books, that remains to be seen. But if, as serious students and followers of Śrīla Prabhupada, if we carefully study and analyze Śrīla Prabhupada's statements, it is not difficult to understand what he is preaching, what he is given. Anybody who is familiar with the nectar of devotion, this is a translation of Rupa Goswami Prabhupada's Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, which is the foremost literature of the systematic explanation and exposition of the science of bhakti in the Gaudiya Sampradaya. This is a systematic explanation from beginning to end of the process of devotional service. Very nicely explained with all evidence from all shastras. So if somebody is ignorant that Prabhupada has given that book or not read that book or not studied that book, it is not Śrīla Prabhupada's fault. It is the fault of the ignoramuses or deeply ignorant persons. Now, it is not our business to criticize or falsely accuse anyone. That is not what we're trying to do here. But we want to dispel any misconceptions people may have that His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupāda did not teach or present the higher stages of bhakti. That is an incorrect proposition. Prabhupada gave everything, the beginning, the middle, and the end. All we have to do is look at these purports. Look at these two texts that we're studying here. Everything is given here very nicely. Prabhupada explains in text number 17 about how to enter into the kingdom of God, the last paragraph. Nobody can enter into the kingdom of God unless one is perfectly cleared of all sins. The material sins are products of our desires to lord it over the material nature. It is very difficult to get rid of such desires. Women and wealth, these two items are very difficult problems for the devotees making progress on a path of going back to Godhead. That was from text number 17. But this is a very important point. When we analyze the sequence of presentation of Śrīla Prabhupada, every sentence, every word has deep meaning. Some time back, a devotee asked me, why is it that in your classes, both you and Vishwakarma are reading all the English synonyms, every word? Why don't you just read the Sanskrit and the translation? I said, no. Prabhupada wanted us to read every word in his books. There is deep meaning to every word that Prabhupada has given. These English synonyms there are not given just for decoration. It is not simply for show. It is for those who are students of Śrīla Prabhupada to learn the Bhagavatam systematically in each and every word there. And we see the same thing in his purports. It is not simply we read the purports and put the book on the shelf and it's done and over with. Prabhupada is explaining everything very nicely. And if we don't understand, simply we have to read it again. In 1970, in July, in Los Angeles, California, when the Nectar of Devotion first came out, I see that Ram Raghava Prabhu is having his Jagannath deities and doing very nice deity worship as we speak. Very beautiful. And his good wife, Eunice, is also there. They're worshiping Lord Jagannath. Very nice. So when the Nectar of Devotion was first given, and devotees started to read this book, they told Śrīla Prabhupada, this book tends to get a little complicated as it progresses. It seems that some sections of these books are difficult to understand. And Śrīla Prabhupada said, if there is something you do not understand, read it again. And they told Śrīla Prabhupada, yeah, but even if we read it again, it's still complicated. It's difficult to understand. Prabhupada said, you read it again and again, and one day you will understand. So this is the process. That's why we hear in the Bhagavatam, Nashta prayeshu vabhadreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya. Constantly rendering service to the Bhagavatas, the pure devotee Bhagavata, and the book Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. That is the greatest contribution of His Divine Grace, His transcendental books. This is a very important point. It's like we are reading about this here. For example, in this text number 19, in the second paragraph, Śrīla Prabhupada explained, the soul's activity becomes adulterated in contact with matter, and as such, the disease activities are expressed in the form of lust, desire, hankerings, inactivity, foolishness, and sleep. The effect of devotional service becomes manifest by complete elimination of these effects of passion and ignorance. The devotee is fixed at once in the mode of goodness, and he makes further progress to rise up to the position of Vasudeva, or the state as unmixed sattva or Shuddha sattva. This is a nice explanation by His Divine Grace Śrīla Prabhupada of the progressive stage of devotional service. Because sometimes devotees will ask, well, how does this work? We hear Bhagavatam, we chant. How does the influence of the mode of passion and ignorance get cleared up? Śrīla Prabhupada is explaining very nicely. Very nicely. And one has to be very patient as well. In the Upadeshamrita of Rupa Goswami, he mentions that one of the important points in devotional service is to be patient. Prabhupada used to often give the example, if a young woman gets married, she cannot expect to have a child immediately. It takes time. She has to conceive, get pregnant, and then there will be a child. It doesn't happen automatically. So similarly, the science of devotional service can take place very quickly, very nicely and very quickly by the mercy of a pure devotee. and following his instruction. But one has to become familiar with the position of being a devotee. What does that entail? For example, we see in text number 20 on page 162 in this version here, Prabhupada is explaining the difference in the position of a Brahmin and what does becoming a Brahmin means. In one place, there is a conversation where Prabhupada explains that a Kanishadikari means a Brahmin, that a third-class devotee should become situated in progress to the stage of becoming a proper Brahmin. But more than just being a Brahmin is to become a Vaishnava. To become a Vaishnava is the topmost achievement. Sat Karma Nipuno, in the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, Prabhupada explains in one place that even if one is endowed with all the qualities of a Brahmin, if one is not a devotee of the Lord, not a Vaishnava, he cannot be a spiritual master. So this is important. There are so many instructions in Śrīla Prabhupada's books and purports. There are so many gems. It's like going to the ocean. If you go into the ocean and so many gems are there, we have to learn, basically, very nicely, how to understand the teachings that Prabhupada is giving. Let me give you an example. When we were teaching in a Gurukul at some point, we had one of the young boys, we would study a purport, we did this, and each sentence was put out separately on a piece of paper. It would be like if you put every one of the sentences in the purport in a bullet sequence. You got one sentence followed by another sentence, by another sentence, and there are so many points that are being made there. It's like we used to study Ishopanishad that way. We look at the purport, we look at all the points that are being made, and then you look at all the citations and quotations that Prabhupada gives. Prabhupada in his books, he's constantly giving some Shastra Pramana or evidence from the scriptures, either in Sanskrit or Bengali. He's giving Vedic evidence for everything that he's speaking. And then Prabhupada is giving so many analogies, so many examples, because we have Kali Yuga brains. Alpamedasa. Alpamedasa means less intelligent brains in Kali Yuga. So everything is being broken down very easily for the less intelligent class of people in Kali Yuga. But what happens if the less intelligent starts to think that they become more intelligent than their guru? Then they're in big trouble. Just the other day, one of our friends on the WhatsApp channel, there's a Prabhupada Disciples Association PDA chat, and one devotee quoted from a lecture of Śrīla Prabhupada, Yat shikshato yadanugrahat, that if you receive some instruction from someone, you should be respectful. You should be grateful to that person always. And Prabhupada says, don't learn this Guru Maravidya. Guru Maravidya means taking knowledge from the Guru and then disregarding and disrespecting the Guru. This should not be done. That's why now we're seeing a tendency, especially from some so-called educated persons, claiming that Prabhupada exceeded his authority in the matter of social discourse, in the matter of the position of family, in the matter of Vedic position of women, in the matter of social structure, in the matter of so many scientific statements. And so persons are criticizing Śrīla Prabhupada. Although they claim to be disciples, they're exhibiting this Guru Maravidya mentality. Take knowledge from the Guru and kill Guru. Take knowledge from the spiritual master, then neglect the spiritual master and disregard the spiritual master. That should not be done. That is not the Vedic process. We see in the Chandogya Upanishad there is an injunction. Acharyavan Purusho Veda. Same thing in the Bhagavad Gita. Prabhupada explained, Acharya Upasanam Shocham. One should worship the Acharya. It is not simply accepting the spiritual master like a pet, that I've got a guru, but one is simply ignorant. Like one conversation, Śrīla Prabhupada says, if you want to glorify your guru, then you must learn to defeat opponents, adversaries who present bogus philosophies, nonsense philosophies, atheistic philosophies. Why is it that in these discussions that we have here, we often come back and criticize the idea that in our movement, some people are starting to introduce so many Sahajya mantras, concocted mantras that Prabhupada, that our Śrīla Prabhupada is not given. Prabhupada is given everything for the practice and the preaching of Krishna consciousness. There's no need for anyone to invent some mantras or some new Sahajya chanting. Prabhupada is never given that instruction. During the time of Bhaktivedanta Thakur, there used to be one Babaji named Charandas Babaji. And Prabhupada explained he's the one that popularized that chanting, Nitai Gaur Radhe Shyam Hare Krishna Hare Ram. And he went all over Bengal and popularized that chanting. And when Bhaktivedanta Thakur got hold of him and convinced him that this kind of chanting is not authorized according to our Gaudiya Vaishnavacharyas, this should not be done. And this person felt repentant and asked him, what can I do? Bhaktivedanta Thakur said, there's nothing you can do now. All you can do is do the proper chanting. The Pancha Tattva Mahamantra, Sri Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda, Sri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaur Bhaktavrinda, and the Mahamantra, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So that is the standard that Prabhupada is given. That is what we should follow. Not all this popular gypsy dancing and nonsense concocted mantras. At this point, we're going to read a few paragraphs from a lecture that Śrīla Prabhupada gave on October 30th, 1972 in Vrindavan, India. October 30th, 1972. Prabhupada, Tadarajastamo bhavaha kamalo badayaschaye chetaye terana viddam stitvam satve prasidati. The beginning of the chapter was Yena Atma Suprasidati. Save pumsam paro dharmo yato bhakti radukshaje. Ahetukiya pratihata yayatma suprasidati. So everyone, even in this stage, the advanced materialistic persons, they seek after peace, peacefulness of Atma or self. Take, for example, that in Western countries, the younger generation, coming from very rich family, rich nation, they've given up the standard of living as it had observed by their fathers or grandfathers. They do not like it. Because they do not like it. Because they're not satisfied. Yayatma suprasidati. There is no satisfaction of Atma. Therefore, they have given up. Bhoga and Tyaga. Bhoga means enjoyment, and Tyaga means renunciation. So actually, in this world, some people are very much busy in the matter of Bhoga, enjoying the karmis. And some people are very much engaged in the business of Tyaga, renouncement. These two kinds of activities are going on. One is very, very busy for acquiring things for sense enjoyment. And when he's dissatisfied, he cannot fully enjoy it. Neither is satisfied. He says, Brahma Satyam Jagan Mitya. This world is false. There is no need of this world. The grapes are sour. The same story, the jackal and the grapes. A jackal wanted to hear the grapes, and it jumped many times, but could not approach the grapes. So at last he satisfied himself. There's no need of the grapes. It is sour. So this Brahma Satya Jagan Mitya is like that. When one is fed up or tired of this world, he cannot enjoy it due to age or other circumstances. At that time, he says Jagan Mitya. Why Jagan Mitya? If God is truth, then creation of God is also truth. Why it should be Mitya? But because he has no knowledge, sufficient knowledge of the Vedic instruction, Ishavasyamidam sarvam purnamadah purnamidam udachyate. He does not know that creation of God is complete. There is no defect. When God created this world, he created it perfect. Take, for example, we require water. So in every planet there is sufficient water, these oceans and seas, and they're very nicely preserved, adding with what is called salt. What is the chemical name? Sodium, devoted chloride. Prabhupada, sodium chloride. Sodium chloride is preservative. So the water is preserved mixing with sodium chloride. Just see how perfect arrangement. And the water is evaporated on the sky by distillation, making sodium chloride separated from the water. Distillation means to take the pure water, distilled water. Now, the distilled water is taken on the sky, and as rain it drops on the ground, and it is stored on a mountain hill. Gradually, the whole year, the water is coming down in the shape of river, and supply is there. First of all, the whole land is moistened with water by rainfall. Then portion of it, some of the water is preserved in Iceland in the shape of ice. So there is complete arrangement. We have not seen Pashyati Jnana-chakshusha. Because we have no knowledge, we do not see how things are nicely arranged by God for our maintenance. Everything is there. Purnat purnam udachyate purnasya purnamadaya purnameva vasishyate. Everything is complete. It is our mismanagement. We, the so-called civilized human beings, we have created problems. We have created problems. This is my land. This is my country. Why you are coming here? Then there is fight. There is spoil of things, so many things, because they do not know. Ishavasyamidam sarvam. Everything belongs to God. Then now they have developed the communist idea that everything belongs to the state. But that is also imperfect. There is no peace. Still, sitve sattvam, cheta ete ranadviddam, stitvam sattve prasidati. What is that? Cheta ete ranadviddam, stitam sattve prasidati. They do not know that we have to come to the platform of goodness, sattva guna. Then there will be peace. So I'll shut up for a while. Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much for that wonderful discussion class on Prabhupada's transcendental explanation of the philosophy of Krishna consciousness. And Yaśodā-nandana Prabhu, when I first met Prabhupada, it was in 1971 in Detroit, Michigan. We had come down from Hamilton by a truck. I think it was an old van, and there was about 11 or 12 of us in the van. And we made our way to Detroit, to the Detroit airport, and Prabhupada came in. And I still remember vividly thinking, I'm so unqualified to even look at Śrīla Prabhupāda. Because back then, we had the realization that Prabhupada was transparent via media for Krishna. This understanding that Krishna had taken over his senses, and he had completely surrendered himself to become a medium of explanation from the spiritual world through him to the conditioned souls here in the material world. Transparent via media. And when I first glanced at Prabhupada in the airport, at the time, I think I mentioned this earlier, I was embarrassed to even think I could look at him. I thought, oh, I can't even look at this person. He's so elevated. But then I considered it while I was sitting in the group. Prabhupada was in front of us on a seated, And I was hiding behind the devotee, not looking. I thought I'm unqualified. And then I finally thought, this is ridiculous. I have to look. What's the matter with me? So I looked. I saw Prabhupada drinking water from a lota. I'd never seen that before in my life. He would hold the water up in the air and let it stream down, and it looked like silver passing through into his body. So Prabhupada was speaking to us, and it was so wonderful to witness, and very vividly, this understanding that the pure devotee is not an ordinary man. He's a transcendental messenger from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Such a great soul is very rare, Krishna explains in the Gita. Very, very rare. So this term also, Yaśodā, is called Jivan Mukta, as you know. Liberated while you're within the confines of the material body. Just like the coconut husk is removed from the coconut shell. So even though it appears to be part of the material, part of the coconut, it's actually separated. So in the same way, Prabhupada was, even though he appeared to be in some regards to be an ordinary person to the mundane people, the fact of the matter was he was beyond the material body. He was Jivan Mukta, liberated even within the confines of the material body. And this is a point that we are honored to represent in the Prabhupada Disciples Association, that understanding that Prabhupada is very, very special and very unique in this spreading of Krishna consciousness, because such a great soul is very rare, very, very rare, liberated even within the confines of the material body. This is, Prabhupada's referred to it here as this, the transcendental platform of goodness. And what does that mean? That means the platform of devotional service, that Prabhupada's whole life. And it's very interesting to note, Yaśodā Prabhu, that this particular book that we're studying, and everyone should realize this very, very carefully, that this book was written in 1962, not in 1970, not in 1975, not re-edited in 1983. This was written in 1962, prior to the beginning of the Krishna Consciousness movement in New York City in 1965, when he arrived on September 19th. So he was already situated on the platform of transcendence before he arrived in New York City. It wasn't that all of a sudden he became. He had been living in India at the Radha Damodar temple as a renounced sannyasi and practicing Krishna consciousness diligently, like he was instructed by a spiritual master. Was he accepted or known as such in the society of devotees? No, he wasn't known. In fact, most people in the Gaudiya Math had no idea really what he was doing or what his plans were, how he was so committed to the Sankirtan mission of his spiritual master, Bhaktisiddhanta. But this is proof that he was a liberated soul, even then. Never was there a time when he wasn't focused on the transcendental platform. And so we're so blessed to be able to deliver this message to the human race that Prabhupada still lives in his transcendental sound vibration based on his mission. This mission of spreading Lord Chaitanya's blessings to the human society in the form of the Harinam Sankirtan mission. And I thought, Prabhu, thank you very much for bringing it up. How many concoctions are going on these days in so many different groups in terms of the actual teachings that Lord Chaitanya delivered to us in terms of Harinam Sankirtan? Very simple. In the early days, in the Hamilton Yatra back in the 1971, we chanted 3 basic mantras: the pranam mantra, the offering to the spiritual master. We would chant that 3 times. Then we would chant Bhaja Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhaktivinoda. We would chant that 3 times. And then in the early days, we only knew 2 specific melodies. The famous morning tune that was chanted so beautifully by Vishnu John Swami. I think you can recall that. I can remember working in the kitchen and we had cassette tapes. And they were circulating around, and put that on and you hear him chant the morning melody that Prabhupada gave us. And in the evening, we had the evening melody, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, that simple melody. And the other one in the morning, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. So we would sing those melodies, and we had a really great group of devotees back then, and so many expert singers and chanters, so it became such a ecstatic, blissful experience to chant the holy names in association of devotees. And really, Prabhu's in this association today. We're so glad that you're attending this class, because we get a chance to share the transcendental mood of the Sankirtan mission as it was in the 70s without any adulteration. And we hope that you appreciate our efforts to give you a taste of the philosophy according to the original understanding that all of us were blessed with back then in association with Śrīla Prabhupāda personally. Yaśodā, I wanted you to further comment if you could.
Yeah, this is quite an important point. In 1969 in Montreal, there was a devotee named Sripati. He's a British devotee who was living there. And he was a very nice kirtan leader and a fantastic cook. And what happened is some devotees from New York had sent a recording of Prabhupada chanting Govinda Jaya Jaya. At that point in the movement, we had very few recordings of Śrīla Prabhupada. So they sent this recording of Śrīla Prabhupada, and it was Sunday after the feast. And Sripati assembled all the devotees and said, "This is very rare. This is the voice of a pure devotee. This is the voice of Śrīla Prabhupada, a completely pure devotee." And the way that he explained it is when you listen to Prabhupada's voice, it is non-different than being directly with Śrīla Prabhupada physically. And in the 4th canto of the Bhagavatam, Prabhupada describes why is the voice of a pure devotee so powerful. And Śrīla Prabhupada explains that the voice of a pure devotee is powerful because it is in direct contact with these saffron mercy particles that are placed upon the lotus feet of the Lord. So there is a difference between a neophyte devotee, whether it's a 3rd-class neophyte or a middle-class neophyte, and a fully liberated, perfect, pure Mahabhagavat, pure devotee like Śrīla Prabhupada. And this is what Prabhupada is giving in his non-adulterated books, that we can all benefit. Everyone can benefit. As a matter of fact, in the Chaitanya Bhagavata, Haridas Thakur mentions that the chanting of the Mahamantra, the name of Lord Hari, is so powerful that not only human beings, but animals, beasts, birds, reptiles, every living being benefits from hearing the Mahamantra. So this is a very important point. I wanted to make a little announcement. This week is a very special week. For those of you who are observing the Mayapur calendar, tomorrow is Ekadasi, and on Wednesday, May 3rd, 2023, is the disappearing day of Jayananda Prabhu. For those of you who may have heard, Jayananda Prabhu departed his body in Los Angeles while hearing the Mahamantra, and Prabhupada confirmed in Vrindavan that he had gone back home, back to Godhead. So it's a disappearance day, and Prabhupada wrote a letter how his disappearance day should be celebrated, just like the disappearance day and appearance days of great acharyas. And on Thursday, May 4th, 2023, Thursday, again, this is the Mayapur calendar, is the appearance days of Lord Nrsingadev, Narasimha Chaturdasi. It's a fasting day, just like Ekadasi. In the evening, there's Ekadasi Prasadam. So very special. And Friday is the appearance of Radharaman, the deity of Gopal Bhatta Goswami, the disappearance of Parameswari Thakur, the appearance of Madhavendra Puri, and the appearance of Srinivasacharya. So it's a very powerful week spiritually, very, very nice, and we invite everybody on this call, everybody you know, to follow these various festivals, especially Lord Narasimha's appearance days. Everybody knows about Lord Narasimha. In 1970, in July, in Los Angeles, Prabhupada introduced the chanting of the Namaste Narasimha prayers. And the way that this was introduced, Prabhupada said that this was being introduced for the protection of the Krishna Consciousness movement. For those of you who are familiar, there was some disturbances at that time in the movement when certain individuals took it upon themselves to lock Prabhupada in his room. They kept his mail. At one point, they put salt in the Charnamrita by mistake. At one point, they had the picture of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur upside down on the altar. There was so many disturbances, and Prabhupada referred that there had been introduction of a sinister movement within his society. Now, we're not trying to blame any individual. Basically, it's very simple, very simple. Prabhupada introduced this Namaste Narasimha prayers for the protection of his movement. And when he first chanted that in Los Angeles, I remember at the time I was sitting on the right side of Prabhupada's Vyasasana, and there was an Indian lady in the crowd. Because in those days, the devotees, the men would sit on one side, the ladies would sit on the other side. Prabhupada's Vyasasana was there, and the deities were at the other end. So when Prabhupada sang that section of the song, Jai Jagadisha Hari, this woman started to sing Om Jai Jagadisha Hari, and Prabhupada stopped. He said, there is no Om here. It is only Jai Jagadisha Hari. Do not say that. And Prabhupada was very careful, even with all the songs that he introduced, whether it was Govinda Jaya Jaya, or whether it was the Namaste Narasimha prayers, everything was done in a certain way. And now the argument may be made, and I've heard this, well, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said there's no rules and regulations for chanting the holy name. And Prabhupada one time wrote a letter, you can use any tune. Yeah, that's nice. Prabhupada was trying to encourage people to chant, whether they were chanting with guitar or bongos or whatever. But if we want to please the pure devotee, we should chant the way that he wants to, the way that he introduced it. Because the problem is, we see now it is only 46 years since Prabhupada's departure, for lack of a better word. He's still always present, but we've seen the introduction of so many new ideas, new philosophies, new concoctions, and this idea of introducing new forms of kirtan, non-authorized forms of kirtan, is prevailing everywhere. And it's very dangerous and insidious. What will it be in 100 years? So if we follow Prabhupada, we should follow Prabhupada the way that he wants to be followed, the proper way, the bona fide way. Whether it's the books, the deity worship, how to offer the bhoga, everything should be followed the proper, authentic, bona fide way. That is important. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Yes. Now I see that we have a question here on from Bala Ganesh, and I'll read it out. How to actually identify Śrīla Prabhupāda's books, and it is authentic or not? So, I mean, the simplest way, Bala Ganesh, is to look inside the cover and see the date that it was published. For example, the Gita. The Gita is, it'll say a 72 edition. So that's simple. And then there are new books that are being published by the one of the organizations that claim they have the rights. And it'll say the original or authentic translation. And this way you can, you know, like this particular version of the Gita here, it inside the cover, it'll tell you what it is so that you can be happy to know. So is a reproduction of the first book published by Collier Books. I don't know if you can see that, but it comes up there. It's the first edition. So like that, that's the best way, of course, to recognize these original books. Vinkat Prabhu, yes.
Yes. Regarding this question, there's also a website that I found, bhaktivedantabooktrust.com, but with dashes. So see here, I'm just sharing it. This is set up by a person who's trying to revive the original BBT. So there's a section called Assets. And in that Assets, all the books are listed, the original books. And there's a lot of significant amount of detail for each book. Like, for example, if you hover over each book, there's all the different editions, the original ones. And then if you click on them, there's a lot of detail for each thing. There's like the edition, the publication date, the number of copies, approximate number of copies. Like, we don't have the exact number, but we can see approximately some tens of thousands of copies for this one. The size, number of pages, ISBN, everything, the cover. So like that. So there's details about each of the books. Chaitanya Charitamrita, Krishna book, Teachings of Lord Chaitanya, Ishopanishad. So yeah, just a resource that we can use probably.
Please share that link on the chat message here for everyone. And I wanted to let you know that we're working with the trustee who was given the authority to create this BBT from Hansaduta Prabhu, who was a trustee. And before his death, he passed that responsibility over to a Russian devotee who has been diligently working on the development of the original books and the reprinting of them in their authentic versions moving forward to protect Prabhupada's legacy in the future. Much different than these other books that have come out, like this one here. This particular book has quite a few, version of the Gita has quite a few changes. And they've been distributing millions of these. And unfortunately, for whatever reason, they will not resort back to the original version of the Bhagavad Gita as Prabhupada had authorized. So this is called disobedience to the order of the spiritual master. And it is a grave offense. So offenses against the pure devotee and offenses mean the obedience to his instructions carry serious karmic reactions. This is not something you can whimsically do without facing severe karmic reactions. And this has happened, everyone, to many devotees, our God brothers, who have disobeyed the order of the spiritual master. And if you look at the history of this society, you will see evidence and proof that this has happened. There is no question. I'm going to tell you a story quickly. We had a situation in Toronto where we had a mortgage crisis. We originally bought the building in '76, and then when it came up, we had what's called a vendor take-back mortgage, Vincot, which means that the owners of the church would accept a first mortgage that we would make payments on. It was for $250,000. Now, they did not know when they signed the deal with myself that it was actually for the Hare Krishna movement, because the year prior, they had said, when Prabhupada made the original offer for the temple, they said, when they saw Prabhupada visiting the temple, they told him, we would rather burn the church down than sell it to the Hare Krishnas. Burn it down. So anyway, somehow or other, by transcendental trickery, we tricked the Christians and got the building. But at the end of 5 years, they refused to renew the mortgage. This was the situation back then. So because of that, we were in a dilemma. And we were on a fundraising project to pay the temple off. So we had a large group of people. I created a board of consultants, let's say, not official members, but members primarily from the East Indian community. And they went ahead and we started a campaign. And being the president, I made a decision finally. I said, okay, instead of taking another mortgage, some of these people wanted us to get another mortgage. I decided, no, we'll just carry on and try to raise the money from the community and pay the temple off. And then it could sit as debt-free moving forward into history. So anyway, what happened was some of the people went against that decision, some Indian people. And it was called a mortgage crisis. And we were at the position of getting a power of sale notice against us by the Christian Missionary Alliance. And what happened was we went ahead and made our own arrangements against a lot of the people on the board of advisors. And then what they did is they launched a major campaign against us. They went on the newspaper. We had over 1,000 articles against us because they planted guns in the building to destroy our reputation. It was actually people from within the Indian community and even initiated devotees that we had got initiated by the mercy of Śrīla Prabhupāda through recommendation. And as a result, there was a huge problem, like serious. I mean, there were guns and police and raids, and one of our members, Murli Krishna, was put in jail. And he was completely innocent. We were innocent. And this went on. Now, after that, they had guns in the building. I remember I went to the temple. I ran in by myself, and they came up to me with machine guns, the police, and put me up against the wall. I told them, shoot me, but get off the altar. It was serious. These offenses are not something that you can whimsically do against devotees. And what happened? Two of the main ringleaders, Lolly Vij and D.D. Topper, after 10 years, were both murdered by people through handguns. Think about it. I told my son at the time, you just see, when you offend the pure devotee, when you offend the devotees of the Lord, Krishna will punish you. So in this way, these things have been going on, and down through time, it's now 2023, we look at the history. You offend the spiritual master, you offend the devotees of the Lord that are propagating the Krishna consciousness movement according to his direction, and you think if you criticize them, if you vilify them, that you won't suffer reaction, you're wrong. You are wrong. So everyone should know that. This Krishna consciousness movement is scientific, it's precise, and people that don't follow it, they're subjected to the laws of karma. Yaśodā Prabhu.
Yep, we've seen that, just like we are seeing the coming appearance of Lord Nrsingadev. In Bombay in 1971-72, Prabhupada entered into a land purchase contract agreement with one Mr. Nair. And he had a history of taking money from people, signing into agreements and cheating them of their money. So the situation with Prabhupada, he tried that with Śrīla Prabhupāda. And one time we went in Prabhupada's room and Prabhupada was smiling. So we asked Śrīla Prabhupada, what is going on, Śrīla Prabhupada? Prabhupada says, I was praying to Lord Nrsingadev so this Mr. Nair to die. And we were like shocked. He says, generally we should not pray to Lord Nrsingadev to kill someone. That is not what we do. But in this case, I prayed to Lord Nrsingadev to kill him. And when Prabhupada heard that he had been killed, because he tried to cheat Śrīla Prabhupada from that land in Juhu, Bombay. So afterwards, what happened is that the widow of the Mr. Nair, she came to see Prabhupada, and she basically settled all the legal issues. She gave him either some kind of a quitclaim deed or some kind of legal document to finish all the problems, and she apologized to Śrīla Prabhupada. But there are reactions to insulting a pure devotee. It may not happen immediately, but it's going to happen. If one insults a great soul, a great Paramahamsa like Śrīla Prabhupada, there are reactions. I remember in the beginning in 1978, when I told the GBC of ISKCON that what you're doing here, taking worship in front of Śrīla Prabhupada, that is an offense. That is a great blasphemy. And they laughed at me. They say, oh, what is the proof of that? And I gave them a proof that Prajimna Panditji had given me from the writings of Gopal Bhatta Goswami and Sanatan Goswami in Sanskrit, that under no circumstances should the disciple ever take worship in front of his guru. And this is the disease, this disease of speculation and interpretation. There's all kinds of clever, very clever interpretation. Well, this doesn't mean this, and this doesn't mean that. And we really know what Prabhupada really meant, and we really know what Prabhupada really intended. And we see the result of that speculation, so many concoctions and so many bad results. Just today, I got up early, started to chant japa, and I'm checking my WhatsApp messages. And somebody, I don't know who it was, I didn't know who the person was, some devotee at Mayapur, who gave a very detailed description of another case of abuse and molestation and everything. And it is sad to hear this, but this is a certain reality that is going on. That this is all happening by the arrangement of Krishna to expose the nonsense and purify the movement, to clean up the nonsense that is going on. Prabhupada did not want this kind of nonsense. I remember because I was placed in the Gurukul by Prabhupada himself. You heard me chanting the Brahma Samhita in October of 1976 in Vrindavan, and he sent one or two devotees to call me to his room. He says, "Are you the one that was chanting there?" And I thought I had made a big offense. I didn't know what was going on. Because the devotees say, "Prabhupada wants to see you right now." So I went there, paid my obeisances, and asked Śrīla Prabhupada. And Prabhupada says, "Are you the one that was chanting there?" I said, "Yes, Śrīla Prabhupada." He says, "Oh, that's very good. So now you stay here and teach the children." So that's how I got involved. But then Prabhupada gave me a lot of instructions in May of 1977. I had the opportunity for a few weeks to massage Prabhupada's legs and feet at night, and he would give me instruction about Varnashram and Gurukul. And he gave me a very specific instruction, just like this class, the way we're studying this. Early on, I mentioned that if you take each purport in a purport of Śrīla Prabhupada, and you take each sentence, start to analyze all the main points, take all the different Sanskrit and Bengali quotations separate, all the different analogies and examples separate. And then we started a category. Every time Prabhupada would enumerate the three modes of nature, the personality of Godhead, the six Goswamis, we would have what's called a Sankhya category, an analytical category. And when I described to Śrīla Prabhupada how we were studying his books in that way, he says, "Yes, that is very good." And Prabhupada says, "Make sure they study each and every word. When there's a verse and there's the synonyms, each word has to be studied. Not that we jump, but we get the verse and then we jump. No jumping. You read the verse, it's like we do in this class. We read each meaning, each synonym, we read the purport, and we analyze and we discuss. This was the standard that Prabhupada wanted. So this is a very important point, because we see so many devotees are getting very severe reactions. And this is an example that we have to learn what to do and what not to do. There are examples sometimes given that happen in front of us. This is an example given by Lord Krishna and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, how to behave and sometimes how not to behave. Like that example of that devotee today that sent an email out, a message, how he had been molested, and basically appealing to the leaders of movement to clean it up. Have they cleaned it up? Have they solved the problem? How many times have they swept it under the rug? How many times have they denied it? How many times have they ignored the problem? And then they'll accuse, "Oh, this is all because of the Ritviks. This is all nonsense. This is basically demonizing devotees." First of all, just like Vishwakarma Prabhu said many times before, we're not Ritviks. We are devotees of Śrīla Prabhupada. We are disciples of Śrīla Prabhupada. We are aspiring students and followers of His Divine Grace. That's what we are. Prabhupada set up a bona fide system of initiations and chose representatives that he called Ritviks. We did not use that term. He used that term. So anybody that wants to emphasize Prabhupada is right now being demonized and being assaulted and insulted and harassed because they're emphasizing Prabhupada. The problem is these people never understood the philosophy. The philosophy is to emphasize the eternal presence of the Acharya, Vani and Vapu. They want to emphasize their Vapu, their physical presence, more than Śrīla Prabhupada's Vani. That is the problem. That is the root cause of all the problems. Hare Krishna.
Yes, exactly. And very important for everyone to understand these points and act from that platform on their daily schedule of Krishna consciousness. Vinkat Prabhu, I wanted you to read the quote from Yaśodā-nandana Prabhu, and then we had a question from Balaram in Turkey that he asked and that Yaśoda could give a response to.
Okay. Yeah, sure. I'm just pulling it up here.
Thank you.
So the quote is, one must take shelter of a bona fide spiritual master, and by his instruction increase one's knowledge in devotional service, become detached from the material world, and thus become liberated. An advanced devotee, therefore, does not live within the material body, but within his spiritual body, just as a dry coconut lives detached from the coconut husk, even though within the husk. The pure devotee's body is therefore called Chinmaya Sharira, spiritualized body. In other words, a devotee's body is not connected with material activities, and as such, a devotee is always liberated, Brahma Bhuyaya Kalpate, as confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 14.26. Śrīla Rupa Goswami also confirms this. Iha yasya harer dasye karmana manasa gira nikhilasvapya vastasu jivan mukta sa uchyate. Whatever his condition may be, one who is engaged fully with his body, mind, and speech in the service of the Lord is liberated even within this body.
And read it out to the group, and then Yaśodā-nandana.
Sorry, you were on mute. What did you want me to read?
I want you to read the question from Balaram in Turkey, and then Yaśodā-nandana could give the answer.
I think this was the answer to that question, in fact, but the question was...
Yeah, give the question. Yeah, go ahead. Give the question, though, so they know, and then Yaśoda can give a further answer.
Okay. Is it possible that Śrīla Prabhupāda and the previous Acharyas actually had or have a body just like Krishna, Satchidananda, that is always spiritual, but here on this planet is just acting like the material body, but is not? So that was the question.
So Śrīla Prabhupada explains in the 4th canto, 23rd chapter, text 11, 4th canto, 23rd chapter, text 11, about the position of the body of a pure devotee. Prabhupada explains, Mam chayo avyabhyacharayena bhakti yogena sevate, sagunan samatityaitan brahma bhuyaya kalpate. One who is engaged in full devotional service, unfailing in all circumstances, at once transcends the modes of material nature and thus comes to the level of Brahman. Because of his regular discharge of devotional service, a devotee attains the transcendental stage of life. Since his mind is transcendently situated, he cannot think of anything but the lotus feet of the Lord. This is the meaning of the word samsmarana anupurtya. By constantly thinking of the lotus feet of the Lord, the devotee immediately becomes situated in Shuddha Sattva. Shuddha Sattva refers to that platform which is above the modes of material nature, including the mode of goodness. In the material world, the mode of goodness is considered to be representative of the highest perfection. But one has to transcend this mode and come to the stage of Shuddha Sattva, or pure goodness, where the three qualities of material nature cannot act. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur gives the following example. If one has strong digestive power after eating, he automatically lights a fire within his stomach to digest everything and does not need to take medicine to aid his digestion. Similarly, the fire of devotional service is so strong that a devotee does not need to act separately to attain perfect knowledge or detachment from material attractions. A jnani may become detached from material attractions by prolonged discussions on the subjects of knowledge and may in this way finally come to the Brahma-bhuta stage. But a devotee does not have to undergo so much trouble. By virtue of his devotional service, he attains the Brahma-bhuta stage without a doubt. The yogis and jnanis are always doubtful about their constitutional position. Therefore, they mistakenly think of becoming one with the Supreme. However, a devotee's relationship with the Supreme becomes manifest beyond all doubt, and he immediately understands that his position is that of eternal servant of the Lord. Jnanis and yogis without devotion may think themselves liberated, but actually their intelligence is not as pure as that of a devotee. In other words, the Jnanis and yogis cannot become factually liberated unless they become elevated to the position of devotees. Aruyo kritrena parampadam tata, patantyado anadrta yushmadangrayaha, Bhagavatam 10.2.32. So Prabhupada, like that, explains the process of pure devotion and the process of understanding the body of a pure devotee. Anybody can search on various search engines and search the word pure devotee body or devotee body, and there are so many references from His Divine Grace Śrīla Prabhupāda explaining the transcendental position of the body of a pure devotee. I hope that helps.
Thank you very much. I wanted to call upon our friend, godbrother in Hawaii, Janis Priya, who has been a long-term servant of Śrīla Prabhupada all his life, basically. And let him share some realization this morning in terms of the topics that we've been discussing here at the class. Janis Priya Prabhu. Hare Krishna, glories to Śrīla Prabhupada. I was hoping he'd be there. Oh, here we have somebody. We're coming to the end of the class. It's 11:44. So we'll table, if you have any questions, you can type them in, and that would be appropriate. Vinkat, I wanted you to go ahead and we'll bring up the kirtan of the chanting of the holy name and complete the class. Don't forget, everyone, that we have a class on Wednesday, Chaitanya Charitamrita, at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time here in Canada and Eastern United States. And we invite you to come to the class and invite your friends and family members to join us as we expand the mission of Lord Chaitanya through the Prabhupada Disciples Association and the Hare Krishna Society. All glories to Śrīla Prabhupada.
Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Sivasadi Gaur-bhakta-vrinda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Sivasadi Gaur-bhakta-vrinda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Sivasadi Gaur-bhakta-vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama,
Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Let us offer our respectful obeisances to all the assembled devotees here today at the class. Vanchakalpa, Trubhyascha,
Kripa Sindhubhya Eva Cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavibhyo Namo Namaha. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna.
Aprakrita. Thank you, Aprakrita, for attending and being a great promoter of the Sankirtan mission of Lord Chaitanya in Quebec and worldwide. Janas Priya, thank you. I hear your voice.